We're still waiting for some folks to trickle in, so before we get going in earnest, we'll monitor the attendees a little bit longer.
Okay. Welcome, everyone. This is a State Building Code Council work session for Tuesday, August 4th, 2026. Can we take roll, please?
Yes, give me one moment here. All right, Todd Byerthor,
Here.
Jay Arnold,
Here.
Scott Bastiani, not seeing in the room with us. Sorry, get some stuff messed up. Jason Benway, not seen in the room. Tom Handy, not seen in the room. Roger Haringa,
I am here.
thank you. Angela Hopt,
Here.
Ty Menser,
Here.
Ben O'Muro. I'm not seeing online at the moment. Vikram Semi, not seeing online. Katie Sheehan, just hopped on. Katie Sheehan,
Hi.
gotcha. Morgan Tweed,
Here.
Tom Young let us know he wouldn't be available today. And Dan Young, I'm not seeing online. And with that one, we are shy one person of a quorum, but we can still discuss stuff to here today.
Okay. Yeah, again, this is a work session, so there's no recommendations, not official action. So anyone from the public like to be recognized? Let's see, 5 people online. Oh, I see more. Okay. Okay, not seeing any hands. Let's go into let's just go right in the work session if we don't have a quorum to approve the agenda.
Yep.
We have
All
two.
right.
Go ahead, Dustin.
Well, I was going to say we plan on bringing back the embodied carbon appendix. We've had some discussions going on offline between council members, and Jay Arnold has put forward some revision twos on option one and option one, amendment number one, and option one, amendment number two. And then he's got a summary there. And I apologize on getting those up a little bit late for the meeting here today, but they are all online along with some other documents that we've received in relation to the mechanical code. We've got some revisions for 24 GP1113, which is related to the A3 refrigerants. We have also a multiplex appendix sounds transmission amendment sponsored by Roger Haringa. And there's one other one on the mechanical code for 1104.3.2. It covers two proposals, and both the mechanical ones were sponsored by Ben Omura. And I see Tom Handy is present with his hand up.
Does that mean we have quorum now?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
welcome, Tom. Did you have
Thank you.
some?
Nothing
Ben?
else.
Okay. Go ahead, Ben.
Just noting I'm here. Sorry I was late.
Okay. Nope. Perfect. Well, let's go back to item 2 then to review and approve the agenda, and then we can talk about the 2 items here and how to allocate time. Can we hear a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
moved.
All right, I'll second. Jay
All right.
moved.
Jay and then Roger. Okay, so on that, how would you like to allocate the time? Ben, you said you were okay and you're going to help lead on the IMC. Do you have amount of time you think we should allocate towards that to make sure we don't run out?
I would recommend maybe about I don't know, 15 to 25 minutes or so would be helpful,
Okay.
just so I can kind of set the stage for what kind of outlined in the proposed amendments.
Okay, let's round up. I don't know that body of carbon is going to take that long, but let's at least make sure we have 30 minutes for that. Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, agenda is approved, and we'll come back to Dustin. So we'll start with the embodied carbon.
Yep. So we got some documents sponsored by Jay Arnold on this one. And what would be helpful to open up first, Jay, would it be the amendments or the summary on those documents?
Let's go with the summary, and then we can drill into areas in discussion on depending on the will of the group here.
All right, and here's our summary, and I'll scroll and let you lead me through it, James.
Okay, so just as some background, following up on our discussion on July 21st, several council members worked offline, and I compiled the set of changes that were suggested. First was around some clarification. Had suggested something, and perhaps you could talk to this first piece. Dustin,
You dropped off for about 5-10 seconds there. We lost clarification comment you were talking about.
okay, I'll try going off video to see if that helps. The clarifications I wanted to start with were on definitions of covered projects. And if you could scroll down so we can get Roger's amendment, the CLF proposed language, and then the original language that we released for public comment so people could see those. Roger, would you like to speak to?
I would be happy to, Jay, and I want to thank you very much for pulling all of this information together. I know there has been a lot. I do need to make one correction. My name is Heeringa, and you'll see that throughout Jay's comments. I am not offended at all, Jay, but if I find that I don't correct it, then it has a tendency to kind of continue to move on. So
thank you very much. I always need a good editor for all my public documents.
So this definition of covered project has gone around several times, both in the tag, I think at the MVP or the BFRW committee meeting as well. And we are dialing into the, you see the original number, or original language down below, and then what CLF proposed. The proposal that I put together is meant to very clearly define new construction, additions, and alterations, which I see there's a misspelling on that. It's not alternations, it's alterations. Thank you. The part of what I wanted to make sure that we were, that was a little bit clear is using language that is defined. And in fact, I believe if we are going to do this, that the additions and alterations will need to be italicized because those are terms that are defined within the IBC. So whereas the language the language that CLF has is similar. However, they have the terminology of work area of alterations. And I think from the discussions that I was a part of, the definition of work area actually complicates things. And I'm open to those on the call who are code definition gurus to correct me if I'm misspeaking, but thank you, Dustin. The work area of alterations complicates things, and particularly on one of the comments or the suggestions that I make down below for the building reuse compliance. I am just referring back at this point to covered projects. So yes, that is why I suggested this. It's really just trying to get down to, I think that the language is basically meant to be exactly the same thing, but I'm trying to get it as simple as possible that does dial into existing definitions within the code.
Okay, are we looking for some kind of discussion then on?
Yeah, just any questions or comments? What I would like to do is when we're done with this work session, have a package of amendments that we take for the full council for action. And so looking to see if there's any feedback on this as we go ahead.
Okay. Go ahead, Angela.
So this packet and this new stuff, and with all of is it CLF's comments and things like that, this is a big change to what the tag passed. This is, I mean, a lot of language change. This isn't small tweaks here and there. This is a lot. So I'm just wondering, would it be appropriate that once we get a packet kind of put together, this goes back to the BFRW to actually get public comment, not to change the technical aspects of it or discuss that, but to discuss the language and things like that? Because this just kind of took the public comments from one group and rewrote the appendix. This wasn't like a tweak to a section here or there or anything. This was a rewrite kind of thing. So I'm just concerned that we may need to take this back down a level to have a single discussion on it and then bring it back up to the full council. Because I don't want to be the only code language person here that's trying to put this into enforceable language, where there's some of these things in here where there's tiny little pieces that appear that they could be creating loopholes or interpretations that are going to gray things and create inconsistencies. And I just really like to avoid that. I mean, it's not a mandatory appendix, but I'd like to see it usable so that in the 27 code, when we come around, this can actually, move forward in a meaningful process versus it being skirted by people. So that would be my opinion, is that I would like to take today and come up with a packet, but then take it down a level to open it up for language discussion, including the public, where we do have quite a few code language gurus that could help put it into a usable form. So thanks.
So Angela, I think we were trying to do everything in the work sessions. We added this cycle as a forum to bring in a lot of this technical and really air everything in front of the whole council and one place where we do this. But I don't think I heard any concern from a change in intent in your comments. It was more of a focus on the technical language. Is that fair?
Right. I don't want to take it down a level and reopen it up to debating the technical aspects. I just want to take it down to reopen it for public comment on just the code language and putting it into proper code language that makes sense. Because again, like I said, this is for most of the things, it's like, okay, public comment, maybe you tweak a little bit here, tweak a little bit here. This was a lot of change based on a single group's comments that we then just sort of said, hey, yeah, this is all better. Let's do this. And it's not what the tag necessarily had. And so, but I'm not going to argue the technical aspects. I don't particularly, I'm fine with the technical aspects and trying to live with those for a code cycle and see how they work. But like these definitions have been rewritten, 3 or 4 times, trying to get them to where they're usable and make sense. And code language is hard. It is. It's really hard. And that's why it takes a lot of people to go over it and make sure that it's usable. And the tag took a lot of time to put together their definition to make sure that it was clean and clear and concise, and it got thrown out. And now we're trying to just make sure that these new ones, and I understand what this is doing. This is adding in that it's a combination of any of the 3 types of construction. I get that. Before, the original one was it was new construction of this or an addition of this, and that's fine. But I just think that a few more technical eyes on it would be useful.
Okay, go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, no, I think that does make a lot of sense when we clarify out of these work sessions, just a general feel from the intent and the policy standpoint of what we'd like to do. And then if for certain things that have gone through a lot of technical change, this is one of them. There may be others that we feel the level of change is not necessary to do that. But for this one, I do think it makes some sense to have some more technical eyes on it and get some feedback from the BFRW committee once we get through the set of changes.
Yeah. And I'll put out there, I think bringing it to a committee or a tag is one option. But I've know that council members have been reaching out to those technical experts to inform these. And that was kind of how we approached this, was have council members bring those amendments forward and do the work with the experts in the background. So, I think we're doing a good job of airing this out every week. I'm getting feedback on the parts that I've been working on, and I've been reaching out to both stakeholders and the technical. So I guess the question would be, what do we think is wrong here? Because I'm looking at it, maybe we need to bring the original language up from the tag, but I think this captures the multiple times we've talked about this in the last few meetings, what we were trying to achieve. The original language was the tag language. Is that what you're, Dustin? That's what was filed for CO 102?
Dustin, you're on mute. But yes, Todd.
I haven't compared this specifically with the RDS document, but I do believe that, yes, that is what was released for public comment, is that, not necessarily the original proposal language or anything like that.
Okay, and I thought that's what in multiple meetings we've discussed did not capture what. So if that's the case, then in this, I thought we've discussed that the tag did not capture the intent. But that may be my memory. Okay. Go ahead, Angela.
I have a question on how this applies because I don't know this subject. This isn't my expertise, but can product reuse is one pathway, right? And that's used for like alterations where if you're not demoing things or, it just automatically applies, or if you're reusing what's already there, which means leaving walls in place and stuff like that, right? Am I correct? On a simple.
Yes.
Okay, and can that be combined then with the other two pathways?
Yes. In fact, Angela, if you want to, Dustin, if you can page down to my edit number 4. This is what I said, Angela, is where to go there. What my hope was is building reuse compliance pathway. We call it a covered project. So we've defined the covered project up above.
Right.
And it's basically a covered project, which can, yes, be a new build or an addition or an alteration, which are defined terms within the code. That includes an alteration, which specifically an alteration is to an existing building that maintains 45% of an existing structure calculated per section. So that's
Right.
where, and I guess I would like to comment, Todd, on Angela's point. I don't consider myself a code guru, and my 3 or 4 years or whatever on the council, I have come to understand that code language is difficult. And, so I would love whatever the council feels like is the best way to do it is come up with out of our work session, one document, but then ask, whatever the process is, ask for some review by code officials, because I am not a code writer. But I do see, for instance, even in 103, what you see in blue there, the word alteration should be italicized. And that's kind of where and I believe covered project too, because we define covered project up above. But Angela, my hope is that this particular pathway we are very clearly saying it is a covered project. Covered project is defined up above, which then can be additions and alterations.
Right. So that's where my question is that, so like for whole building compliance or product compliance pathway, each of those includes building reuse. Because otherwise, because you have to, if you're doing a combination where you have an existing building and say you are doing an addition of, 40,000 square feet and you're remodeling the inside, you're going to have to be able to use the reuse and the two together to come up with one calculation. So that's what I'm trying to figure out, how those mesh together.
That's why my suggestion for both of these is that that's covered everywhere in a covered project definition up above.
Right.
Then it is used. Yes, your covered project includes all of those pieces. And then you are not trying to define what pieces those are down in any of the pathways.
So you're doing separate calculations for each one of them?
It would be one full calculation. No, it would be a whole calculation. So Angela, if you did an addition and a alteration, the alteration by definition would have to be, let's call it 25%. You're only saving 25% of the building. Because if you save 50%, you would meet this and you wouldn't have to do any calculations, right? So let's say you're maintaining 25% of an existing building and you're demoing the rest, and then you're doing an addition or new build. It would be the whole square footage, the 25% that you're keeping and the addition that you're building on.
And those would all have to meet the product compliance pathway or the whole.
They would be included as the covered project would be all of it. And then, yes, you would have one of the 3 options
Okay.
one of the 3 pathways. to meet the
Okay.
criteria.
I'm sure it makes sense.
But Todd, that's why like I said, I support having somebody go through it. Some code. I call them code gurus, of which I include Angela, but yes, there are others, and it is tricky. So
Yep. And I think that our intent here was to establish as a council what we're trying to achieve. Oversimplifying it, it was to remove the or and do an and then we can absolutely have staff, Dustin and staff, lead or council members reach out to technical code language people to make sure we got it right. But I think the intent has to be understood in this meeting. Go ahead, Katie.
I appreciate the conversation. I'm totally blanking on the word, but at what point does this like kind of get into the there was a committee in the last code cycle that did the sort of like code integration with the rest of the code. What was that committee? Does anybody remember the name of it? Roger, I feel like you maybe
Maybe the correlation committee.
correlation, that's the word. Sorry. Is that also kind of in this a little bit that will happen? Or is this not the right time to even talk about that? Because it feels like this is a little bit into that as well.
if
Go
I
ahead, Roger.
can answer that, Katie, I don't know, and I don't believe that this appendix would impact other code sections. I'd have to think about it, but I don't believe that that is the case. And again, remember that this is an appendix, so this is not adopted statewide, and a municipality, an AHJ would have to specifically say they are going to adopt appendix. I think that there is a appendix S. So as far as correlation goes, I don't know that there are that this would impact.
Okay, just wanting to kind of get my ducks in a row. I appreciate
Yeah.
this conversation though, because it's really instructive. Thanks.
Yeah, good question, Katie. Just to come in high level again. This is in the IBC. We've had discussion about whether any of this belongs in existing building code. I think where we landed was this is an IBC, and we're just trying to establish that threshold of when a project is covered, or what is a covered project, and we were trying to switch from or to an and. If we go back up to the top, so does everyone agree on that intent? Can we scroll up, Dustin? I think we're still looking at so covered project in the definition, new construction, additions, and alterations. That's what my understanding from previous discussions we were trying to achieve, compared to the bottom where it was an or. Did anyone remember that differently? Anyone disagree with that's what we were trying to do?
Todd, I will, if I may.
Okay.
My understanding of the discussions at the tag, and actually from the original proposal, is that it was meant to be and, not or. And again, the alteration language did get kind of added towards the end. And so that's where the or came from. Certainly reaching out to the proponent might be appropriate to get there and to clarify that. But again, my take on it.
Okay. So that's the homework offline. Go ahead, Angela.
Sorry, is there any scoping in the IEBC that sends you to this appendix at all? Because the IEBC is basically a standalone code that points you to specific sections of the IBC that apply. So I'm just curious because at one point the alterations had been removed from the definition. And so I guess I'm just skimming the IEBC that I haven't been in for a while. asking how you get from this appendix, how you get from the IEBC to this appendix for it to be covered if it's a standalone alteration. Just throwing it out there, I guess.
Yeah, good question.
It is a good question. I know that it was addressed at one point. I'm not quite sure I remember how.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, because alterations were removed at one point until this came back after public comment, then it was added back in. So I'm just curious if it was removed because there isn't a path. So just wondering.
Angela, Ben, go ahead if you.
Sorry, quick editorial thing in the first one. In the second sentence, alterations is spelled alternations.
Thank you. Angela, I think, and I could be wrong, I'm trying to remember the process that we went through. If you are doing an alteration of an existing building, you would automatically meet 100% alteration, right? You're not tearing the building down. You would obviously meet the reuse.
Mm-hmm.
If you are doing if you're tearing down 3/4 of the building and putting in, saving 25%, I believe that you would be in the IBC anyway. You would not be able to do that in the IEBC.
Well, say you got a B occupancy in order to change it into apartments. You take out all the interior, basically leaving the floor, ceilings, and exterior walls. Then you're in the IEBC.
Anything that I've done from the conversations I've had about office to residential, and I'm sorry, I'm not on the occupancy types that well, has been in the IBC, not IEBC.
Well, there is a change of occupancy in the IEBC, which then sends you to specific chapters that you have to meet.
Okay.
Out of the IBC, but that's kind of where I'm saying is there is a slight disconnect there. If you're doing a major alteration, like you're tearing down a part of a building, chances are you're going to be putting part of the building back, and you're going to be then in the IBC because you're going to have new construction and the other. I'm just pointing out that it could be that alterations on their own will never get to this appendix. That's all that I was pointing out.
And I think that what I described is how the tag got comfortable with it. Now, does that mean there is a slight gap someplace? It's possible. So.
Okay. Anything else on this? Are we comfortable enough for now to recommend the top language and make sure we do some homework offline? Okay, I'm going to take that as no response as a yes. Okay, next part, Dustin. Maybe ground us again, just to make sure everyone knows where we are. Okay.
Sure. And we had a number of discussions on what options should we be presenting to AHJs as they adopt this appendix, and what is going to be effective in documenting and reducing embodied carbon. And so one of the questions is, what's the percentage ranges compared to, or what's the percentage ranges and any reductions? And one of the comments of Vikram is not able to join us today, but one of the comments he made on July 21st, so one of the comments that he had shared offline is he was concerned that having a 100% option doesn't gain anything. And if I were to characterize a number of his remarks, my characterization, not his, is I think he was looking to avoid ways to game the system. And so had questioned the value of a 100% value of the greenhouse or the global warming potential, and saying what's the benefit if you are having the value that is the industry average versus a reduction. So he had suggested not having 100% as an option within the product compliance pathway.
Roger, why don't you go ahead and then I have a question. I'll put
Okay.
my hand up.
Yeah, I just will, I'm trying to find where exactly it says this, but basically in the product compliance pathway, if you do not have EPDs, you pull the value, you are allowed to pull the values out of the table. So the values out of the table would theoretically be in both the numerator and the denominator, and basically you're going to come up with 100% without doing anything. So Vikram's point, which I agree with, is it does, in fact, it is a shortcut, because why would I collect EPDs if I can do this calculation and pull the values out of the table in both the numerator and denominator and show that I've met 100%. So I think that having 100% is a short circuit, and that is why I would certainly support having 80 or 90% only and getting rid of the 100%.
Okay, so I'll make a comment and a question here, and correct me, anyone, please, if I misunderstand this. First of all, I mean, I think the material sheet, very clear, that stakeholders don't support the product compliance pathway for, we're not going to get into those reasons right here. But I think they're different things. The reason you might have the 100 when you're rolling up a sum of weighted of values of volume or mass times a number is because there's already a filter in the baselines of a percentile. So if I understand, and this is where I want somebody to correct me if I'm wrong, when you get into the CLF baselines, they do a good job of presenting the different percentile. Here's the 40th percentile, here's the 50th, which is the mean, here's the 60th, so forth. And they're choosing in most cases either the actual mean or a weighted average. So there's already a material product, a product level category filter. You're eliminating half of the materials in theory, but you're not, because you're allowed in that category to go above the mean if then you're making other trade-offs somewhere else to roll it up to hit, the 80, 90, 100 here. So there is an argument of just staying at 100, that in some categories you might be above that mean, some you might be below when you're trying to bring them all together. So anyone understand that differently? I think that's different, though, than that argument of Roger, you were bringing up, are you able to substitute in the table values if you don't have product level EPDs? Go ahead, Jay.
Jay, you're muted.
Click the wrong button there. Also, to provide some food for thought for discussion, for some of the other amendments we were talking about clarifying existing intent. This one may be more of a policy discussion where we have the option of leaving 100 in, and the AHJ could choose not to incorporate it. We also could split this out as a separate amendment for discussion at the full council, since there's some, interesting policy debates between what Todd has said and Roger and Vikram, that we could just consider this independently.
Go ahead, Roger.
At that point, Jay, the other item number 3 in the summary was that I suggested adding 70%. That is purely, as Jay said, giving another option for an AHJ to adopt a number without having to come back to the State Building Code Council. So that's my only suggestion as to why we might add 70 is there may be a city that wants to do 70 and it's a little bit more inclusive. And so I agree in general that 70, 80, or 90 is a policy decision that would be made at the AHJ. Todd, your comment about the easy, Vikram pointed out that it is a easy way for anybody to meet this criteria at 100% is I will just say I don't have any EPDs. I don't collect any. I have 0 EPDs. According to this definition, and this is one of those loopholes that might be there. I do my calculation of mass amounts of materials, and I multiply each of those amounts of materials by the number in the table, and I use both of those numbers in the numerator and denominator, and my answer is 100%. It's 1. So having 100% in my mind is an actual loophole. It allows people to meet that without doing any work other than a simple calculation.
Okay. And I want to make sure I might need to correct myself. If I said 50th percentile is the mean, I meant the median. And then, so everyone needs to understand, and when we get to the values of the product categories, are they 50th percentile? Are they means, which would be the medium? Are they means? And then the different levels there. They could have chosen the 40th percentile. And that would have been one of the ways if there's desire for regulation versus the roll up, which is what we're just talking about right here. So does everyone understand what the proposal is here? Does anyone have a recommendation? Other than what's presented here, I guess. The recommendation from Vikram here is to have the options for 80, 90. And I guess that means if it's a city could not go less restrictive if they were to adopt this, correct? Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, and I guess just as a framing question, and sorry if this was already kind of reviewed, but I just wanted to understand if anyone had a summary of why the tag or the proponent had provided like the higher than 100% values in the initial proposal and in the code language that got into CR 102.
I will try to answer that, Ben. Again, it's trying to be my memory is that in the discussions, it was actually we were getting into that conversation about the bell curve and where you're at on the bell curve. And so it was an idea to leave it as open as possible, allowing cities to really adopt this where it really becomes a reporting only, that almost all at 175, you're way out on the bell curve. And as Todd said, basically any EPDs would work. So it really was it was a flip, whether it was a positive or negative. I think it was a double negative kind of a thing in the discussion. So that's what I remember.
Yeah, thanks, Roger. And yeah, I guess removing those kind of take away from the intent of that is, and potentially part of the intent was to start kind of this getting the process rolling so people could get familiar with it, and then potentially in future code cycles the stringency could be increased.
I think to some that go ahead.
No, go ahead, Todd.
I think to some that yes, just like buy clean, it's a reporting first, and while data starts to get collected, then jurisdictions or the legislature could determine, or the council in this case could determine what those thresholds are. So I think this is a question back to the council. What is your intent here on a product compliance pathway? If you were to have to put it in simple words, what is this achieving? It's a procurement level pathway, and is it trying to influence the supply chain, which is where you're getting the pushback from the material? Is this really the mechanism to influence the supply chain? I know others see it very differently, so I just need to put that in there. So that's the question, I think, for anyone. What is your intent? Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, and as I think of this question is different than some of the others where we were taking the feedback from Carbon Leadership Forum and NBI and the architects and trying to do these clarifications. This really is a policy decision. So my recommendation is that we split out Vikram's amendment to another amendment that could be considered separately, because it's certainly worth the discussion. My general feedback is that for jurisdictions that are adopting this, having the 100% would at least get us reporting for those jurisdictions that choose, and then the jurisdictions that choose to incent reductions would remove that particular option. But I do think it's worth splitting this out so that we're making it really clear. Okay, here's a bunch of clarifications that we're trying to tighten up, and then here's a real policy decision that we're looking for feedback on.
Yeah, and I just raised my hand to recognize myself. Just to be very clear, 100% is regulation. You are asking projects to eliminate the option for higher GWP roll-ups. So it's still, I don't know if I agree that it's not a regulatory, value. Does somebody see it differently?
Yes.
Yeah, no, I meant that respectfully. Please do. Yes.
Yeah. So Todd, I mean, there comes to, I agree with your point, and I also agree with Vikram on the 100%. If you have 90%, let's just say it is 90% number there, you as a design professional on a project that is preparing these calculations, you can have EPDs that are higher than these numbers. Absolutely, 100%. On a product compliance pathway, you would have to have a volume of material times the number, EPD number equals, and then you would add all of those numbers up. You can have some that are higher, and then you would need to have some that are lower so that your average gets you 90% below the number. So are you eliminating any EPDs? My answer would be no. But if you have a project and you're using, let me pick insulation products, because in particular, I'm not that familiar with insulation products. But if you're using mineral wool that has an EPD value of 5 rather than the 3.33 that is included, you can still use that insulation. It's just that somewhere else in your project, you're going to have to use an EPD that is lower than the number, so that the average is 90% below, if we call it 90%. The loophole that Vikram pointed out is we do allow, if you do not have an EPD for your insulation, for instance, you're using mineral wool blanket, but you don't have an EPD for it because the supplier that you bought it from does not have the EPD, you can use the 3.33. If I'm doing the calculation, I am not going to go through the trouble of collecting any EPDs. I'm going to do a volume calculation for all my materials, and I'm going to use the values in the table. And I'm going to, at 100%, I'm going to say I meet it, because it would be the exact same formula in the numerator and the denominator, which by definition is the 100%. So I don't know how, yeah, that's my take. You said, does anybody disagree? And
I appreciate it. That's what
yeah.
I was trying to trigger. Thank you. Okay, anyone else? So the council has to make a recommend. Go ahead, Katie.
Well, I just have a question in terms of how that policy choice gets described. So assuming we I'll just say, assuming that we take like Roger's interpretation and say, okay, 100% is amounts to just like getting people used to recording this. Does that get how do jurisdictions know that that's the choice that they would be making if they choose 100 versus 90, say? Would they just have to depend on their, code specialists in their jurisdictions, or does that policy choice need to be also expressed here?
Yeah.
And I think that this is a policy choice, and I do think it should go up to the full council and separated, like Jay suggested. Sorry about the dog.
I think it's the right question, Katie. So you have a council here with seat representation, subject matter experts. And then the question becomes, is this a policy discussion? Is it a technical discussion in rulemaking where we're doing right now, or is it a policy decision for a local jurisdiction for a city council that may not have that technical expertise? It's their prerogative, obviously. So I think the question from my standpoint becomes, do we as a council and do jurisdictions understand what these numbers mean? Because I think we're debating that there are two levers here. The level at the product category level in the baselines is one, and this is a roll-up lever for the whole project. Go ahead, Roger.
Yeah, I'm looking up at the very beginning. I thought that there is a user note about this appendix at the very top of the document. And I actually thought, Katie, that at one point I thought that in that in the user note, it specified that the 80-90% are a value that is adopted by the AHJ. I don't see that right now. So that is something, clarification we could add. There is a user note, so we could clarify that. On a technical perspective, what I want to do, my suggestion is that we have a 70, 80, or 90% that we are giving. It isn't a policy decision that the council is making. The council is putting numbers out there that AHJs can adopt, and they can adopt without coming back to us. And that is all. That's all the council is doing, is we are saying, you can choose 80, 90. What's up on the screen is you can choose either 80 or 90. And you don't have to come back to the council, and you can adopt it as is. My understanding is if you wanted to do something different, you would have to come to the council and say, and I am not an expert at what that process looks like, but if you wanted to adopt this but do something different, it would be, you could do that, but you'd have to come back to the council. And that is my reasoning. And if we're going to do a separate amendment, which I completely am fine with breaking this out and having a separate conversation about those numbers, I would ask you to put my comment number 3 in the same way. I suggested added 70% just to make it easier. So, if a city wants to do 70% and we have 80 or 90, all right, let's do 70 and leave it as an option.
Okay.
one clarification on your last comment, Roger. Where I think 70, keeping it in as a package makes some sense because that allows a jurisdiction to go less restrictive without coming before us. The policy discussion around Vikram's amendment on 100%, if we don't allow 100%, there's no way for a jurisdiction to do that because it's less restrictive than the standard, as I understand it.
Go ahead, Roger.
Sorry, I do want to point out, as far as making this a reporting only concept where people are starting to get used to the process. If you go to, I'll find it here. I just went past it. S104.1, compliance on construction documents. Which one are you on? Dustin, I think that you are on the, yes, you are not. If you could pull up the S104.1 from the CLF or the amendment that Jay put together.
Gotcha.
Not the summary, but the.
And this is amendment 2 or 1?
You're showing the summary right now.
Right.
Looking for amendment 1.
Okay.
Roll up.
There you go. And then go down to 104.1. So the sentence that got added was added because what happens if you, at the compliance pathway, yes, there is a design, okay, here's what we're anticipating, but really it is what is procured, what concrete's procured, steel, rebar, whatever. What happens if you don't meet it? Are you going to start tearing materials out and putting it back in with materials that would meet it? And that is not the intent. So the sentence that got added at the bottom, covered projects shall comply with, compliance on a registered design professional shall prepare the construction documents and provide signature verifying compliance. All right. It's not where it is. Oh, go down. It's the very bottom of 104.2. For all pathways, compliance can be achieved if the updated calculations are accompanied by a narrative describing why the pathway criteria were not met. That allows this to be a reporting only, particularly on the product compliance pathway, is basically at the end of the day, if you do procure a bunch of materials and you do not meet the 80, 90%, whatever the number that is chosen, that is adopted, you don't have to start tearing materials out. There just needs to be an explanation by this is under the verification. 104 is verification and amended documentation for reduction of body event carbon. So
Okay. Well, are we at a point of recommendation on this topic?
Back to the summary, there's one more change I just want to make sure we touched on. The other piece was questioning about cross-laminated timber not being part of that product materials table. We did get some information from CLF on what they have in their current 2025 report for the figure there. And so the change would be to include that into table 103.1. And that's the option 1 amendment 2 change where we're updating that table.
Okay.
Ask a question about this 134 kg kilogram. Is that 134 related to the values that 70 to 100 that we were talking about, or are they completely? I mean, they're somewhat related in GWP, right? This is the GWP. The 134 kg is the GWP value, essentially.
Scott, thank you for raising that. And maybe I'll, in full transparency, this one category is my subject matter expertise, so I will weigh in on this. I have a lot of concern over this number, and because what you're looking at, to my understanding, and again, if I get this wrong, please correct me, you're looking at a mean over North American manufacturers, and that first point concerns me because Canadian data is not the same as US data, so that pulls the number down significantly. So this is not the median, and it is definitely not the regional number. So I've actually had experience with a mass timber CLT factory and led the LCA, and the number was 155 or 156, and that's in the baseline report. The report's very good. It very clearly lays out the manufacturers that they used and so forth. And when you look at that, the Washington manufacturers are more in that 155. So my concern here is you immediately disadvantage Washington manufacturers, and if and with this number, so then maybe that can be changed. It just raises my question then, what about all the categories I'm not an expert in? And do we need to go as council members go and, and understand every one of those? This is not criticism of CLF. CLF, the baseline report is outstanding. It is a wealth of information. But for example, this number right here raises flags for me for Washington manufacturers and for small. So where I'm going with this is there are different numbers because, especially in this area, if I'm in the Northwest, if someone is using timber from forest restoration, fuel reduction, thinning processes, that is a higher number. It takes more in the A1 through A3 calculation. It takes more diesel fuel, for example. That's often how it's used. But it doesn't account for the value system of why you might be doing restoration to prevent wildfire or whatever it might be. So this is where the concern, as one example from the material standpoint, what are the others in concrete, steel, so on? Go ahead, Roger.
2 points. Number one, my suggestion is to include CLT. I don't know what the right number is. So asking the question that you had, Todd, is a relevant question. And I did not see Megan on the list of attendees. So I don't know the answer to what the right number is. I did the Mr. Google, Mr. AI does say that the North American average is 134. And so is that Washington versus Canada? I don't know the answer to that, Todd. And it is the North American average. So I think, but again, I would have to, I'm not an expert by any stretch of what the numbers are in the CLF.
Go ahead, Katie.
Yeah, I mean, so just to kind of extend your example, Todd, like, wouldn't that be part of the explanation on why you couldn't get there? So I guess, it's like for the sake of information gathering, if you're saying that, it should be a different number, or we think it should be a different number, or it comes in higher, but these are the values that we were clearing for wildfire. That feels like a reason that would be in that editorial kind of place. I don't know. I'm just kind of like I am trying to figure out like that for the places where you're not an expert or we don't have an expert, to supply that extra information. I suppose like in the next code cycle, some of that information then would be maybe perhaps more in a range or something. Does that make sense? I mean, it does seem like there's a place in this code for that flexibility.
Yeah, and just I can give an example. When you go into the CLF baseline, what this is saying is that BC has given an industry average of 100 something, very close to 100, whereas that 155 is what we see in the US data set. And those are so a lodgepole pine 1 kilometer north of the border harvested in the same way as a lodgepole pine 1 mile south of the border does not have that distinction, does not have that differential of 50. So I really challenge that inclusion of that, and it raises the question of what are we codifying in the state of Washington that could disadvantage in this one particular example, the Washington manufacturers. Go ahead, Jay.
Originally, the discussion coming out of the tag didn't list this. If we have a category like this that isn't listed in the table, you don't have an EPD for, what does it mean? Is that a neutral component to the building? What happens if we take no action on cross-laminated timber?
And there are other categories like precast, for example, that I don't believe are included. And we have precast manufacturers in the state. Go ahead, Angela.
I think we discussed this last time. They become a freebie. They don't count against you at all. If they're not listed in the table, they don't count. So it's a loophole.
Okay. How would we like to take action? Okay, so now we have, Jay, have we covered all 4 topic areas, and do we want to make a recommendation for all 4? I think we kind of settled one, right?
What I'm hearing was that I didn't hear objections to Roger's technical corrections. I'll split out Vikram's 100% into a separate amendment so we can discuss it separately. And then I guess the question is for Amendment 2, which was the update of the overall table from 2023 numbers to 2025 numbers. Then we also have this cross-laminated timber issue. The question is whether you want to separate out those questions or accept this addition with the other revisions.
Go ahead, Roger.
Yeah, Jay, I think that's perfect. And having a conversation about the CLT is completely fine with me. The reason that I suggest that, again, I am not sure what the right number is, and there can be some investigating and conversation around that. Being the structural engineering representative, if we are doing this calculation and we are looking at the structure is going to be 50 to 75% of the embodied carbon when we do this calculation, depending on the project. And if we do a CLT project, that is a very large part of the structure. So that the way it is written right now, if we do not have it included, you can exclude all of the CLT in your project. And that doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me. You're taking one major part of the structure out of your whole calculation, and the numbers that you end up with are relatively meaningless in my perspective. So again, just reiterating, the number we can talk about, I feel strongly that it has to be in there as a covered product.
Okay.
Okay, I will split that out for a separate discussion on the council. The other action, Chair, that I want to ask about taking today is for the technical changes in the package that we have of the changes we discussed previously and the changes we discussed today from CLF, NBI, and AIA, sending those to the BFRW committee for review. Can we take action to do that today as a council so that we're moving forward in parallel?
Jay, are you referring to Angela's concern about the code language?
Yep.
Okay. Leave it to the council if you think that is the best path. I think my opinion is we can address it offline and bring it back to this work these work sessions, but I defer to the council. Go ahead, Roger.
Well, being the chair of the BFRW committee, thinking of the standing members of the BFRW committee, they are the heads of the building, fire, residential, and WUI code, I believe, as well as you, Todd, as the chair. I forget exactly.
Mm-hmm.
None of those members are, well, I take that back. Angela might be one of those. I don't remember. Angela would be the primary code writing expert of that group. So in my mind, the BFRW is still going to be asking, and I will throw out John Sue, Micah Chappelle, some of those types of people, and I know that Micah has volunteered to review this once we get a package. So whether the BFRW committee, it gets sent to the BFRW committee, it's still going to need to rely on those experts. So my thought, my opinion is that if we just as a council recognize that we have to go through that process yet, once we have a clean package, that we get it reviewed by two of those people between Angela, John, and Micah. And we do a review by at least two of those people to make sure that it is clean code language, that we do that offline as part of the council. I don't know that the step of sending it out to the BFRW really adds anything to that process.
Thanks, Roger. Go ahead, Angela.
Yeah, that could work. If we're gonna put a packet together and then send it just for a code language review, that could work, and then it could go to the full council. I think that'd be a good plan.
Okay. I think that's a simple direction to staff to facilitate. Any objection? Okay. I think by recording, go ahead.
I'll take it on as a task to let Micah and John know that I volunteered them.
Okay. It's recorded in these minutes.
That's right.
Okay. Okay, hearing no objection to that. Any other objection to Jay's proposals of isolating both the Vikram's proposal of 80, 90, 100 and then the CLT number?
Yep. And then question for Dustin. We've talked about wanting to do this at a regular council meeting so we get full participation. Is this something, given our discussion today, what you've seen, that we could do for the meeting at the end of August?
We could do it in the meeting at the end of August. We've been trying to shoot for that meeting to be the final adoption meeting that could transpire there. It may be more relevant to maybe schedule a special meeting where we're not labeling as a work session to make motions before we're trying to do a final adoption on that. But it could happen at that final meeting. But as we come through, and I guess as I'm thinking this out loud, when we come to that final meeting, we're supposed to have our final code language available for 7 days before we do final adoption. So thinking about that requirement, we would need to have something occur where we make motions to draft that into the package before we make a final adoption motion, pass it, or go through that deliberation.
Okay. All right. Is everyone clear? Okay, I don't see any objection. So we can, I think we're ready to close this one out. Jay, did you want to, we still have 15 minutes. I didn't think we would come up on that.
I don't have anything else. I will work with Dustin on how to get these in front of the council and that offline working group.
Okay, and just to be clear, because we have three options here, right? We have option 1, revision 2, option 1. I'm sorry, option 1 amendment. It's all rolled up together, I guess is what I'm saying.
So I'll be coming back with 4 amendments. One is the option amendment 1, which is the technical changes. I'll add a 1A, which is the discussion of the 100% in the
Right.
and then we have amendment 2, which is updating the numbers from 2023 report to the 2025 numbers, and then a 2A, which will be the cross-laminated timber discussion.
Got it. Okay, I think that covers it all. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Does that close out our embodied carbon?
I believe so.
Okay. Then let's move into the mechanical code and let's throw it to you, Ben, please. Roger, do you have a question? I'm sorry.
I just wanted to recognize that there was a something posted for the multiplex, and if we have the opportunity to talk about that afterwards, I would like to.
Okay. Okay. Go ahead, Ben.
All right. And Dustin, I assume you have the just proposed language that I'd sent available to share. Okay.
Would you like to go over the one on proposal 113 or the 110432 first?
Let's do the 1104.3.2 one first. And so both of these that we're going to be looking at, just to set the stage, are responding to the amount of public comment that we got for chapter 11 of the mechanical code. And these are really in reference to the refrigerant requirements, especially around A2 and A3 refrigerants. So the first one that we're looking at is really meant to align the proposed changes that were in 24 GP1 112 as well as 24 GP1 104 in section 1104.3.2. And really this is simply revising the section to align with the source basis, which is ASHRAE standard 15 2024. And what occurred is that the ASHRAE standard had an appendix that was issued following the code proposal submission. So this is, and they kind of rewrote how the section is structured that is also very similar in the mechanical code. So basically what the proposed change does is align the language with that ASHRAE 15 Appendix J section in here. And so all the exceptions that were previously in the proposal and that are in the CR 102 are struck in, and the kind of the base language is revised. And then if you scroll down, Dustin, it'll have pretty much the same exceptions, but rewritten as allowable pathways. So same things are in here. There's updated references which reflect what's in the current ASHRAE standard. And then the only additional kind of modification here is to exception 7, where the ASHRAE 15 language clarified exception 6 to only be for machinery rooms. Exception 7 retaining what was in the CR 102 was to include that same pathway, but for equipment installed outdoors. And so that is all in the intent of what is included in the ASHRAE Appendix J modification forward section, where they indicate that they're not trying to prohibit installations outdoors. So this is really meant to be a clean kind of clarification to just make sure everything's following the latest information and guidelines and aligning it with the current ASHRAE standard language. Pause there real quick. Anyone has any questions? And
yeah, thank you for the heavy lift on this, for all of those that have been involved with this. I know this is significant coordination. Anything concern you, Ben, in this that the council should be aware of?
For this one, it's very much in the same spirit of what's in the CR 102. So really the intention is to retain that intent that the tag reviewed and discussed. And so that, yeah, really not meant to be any kind of significant change or introduce any controversy into what's already available for public review and what we receive public comment on.
Okay. Okay, I think that's clear. I'm not seeing any questions or objections.
And I guess, Todd, unless you feel otherwise, I would recommend, yes, following a similar path of like introducing these amendments today, and then having the full council be able to respond and comment in the next session.
Yep, I think that makes a lot of sense. Go ahead, Roger.
Sorry, I'm jumping the gun. I was on the next one.
All right, well, maybe ask Ben to roll into that one.
Yeah, so yeah, we can switch over to the next one, which addresses the proposed changes that were introduced in the 24 GP1 113 proposal. So, and here since this affected some of the same sections that we just looked at for the previous amendatory language, the idea was to show those in tandem with each other, but kind of hopefully make them distinct enough so it's understandable. So we'll see how that goes. But basically presenting 4 options for how we could address the intent and respond to public comment. That was based around kind of the installation of equipment using A3 refrigerants, which is the flammable refrigerant. So that's where there's significant public comment recognizing there's some inherent risk with this type of equipment, and some questions regarding the compliance pathways that were introduced in the proposal. And I guess this will be common through most of the options, but one item that I recognized is that it looked like the exceptions that were introduced in the proposal for section 1101.2 were incidentally inserted into section 1101.2.1 in the CR 102. So a lot of the underlined blue text here is moving those to the appropriate section. So that's not, I hopefully that was clear with kind of making that editorial change. I don't know if you had any other feedback, if my read on that was correct or not.
I don't. I mean, I'd have to do a deep dive on some language for that one.
Okay. But yeah, the intent was just to put it in the appropriate section, which was addressed in the proposal language. And then option one, so the summary here is it maintains the intent of the original proposal language and introduces exceptions or into the exceptions allowance for using the EN compliance standard, as well as the NIA and IEC pathways, which were received through public comment. So you'll see those are the bolded changes listed here. And also just cleaning up kind of the reference to the table 1101.2. And then, as I mentioned, the change for 1101.2.1 is just to remove those exceptions from the CR 102 up to the appropriate section. Pause for Jay. Good.
Thanks, Ben. One thing that I had my notes from the public feedback in our previous discussion is that you are allowing an exception for equipment that's on the Northwest Energy Efficient Alliance qualified product list, which I don't know, but was described during public comment as a energy efficiency standard versus the items in the table, which are UL listed, which is a more of a safety standard. Can you comment on that at all? Was that are any amendments addressing that particular?
Yeah. So yeah, I think as we step through the amendments, it kind of goes on the kind of quote unquote like risk scale. It'll kind of slide down that. So as we move through them, it'll de-risk them a bit. So for the first option, it kind of preserves the original intent of the proposal, which is to use that NIA standard as a applicable compliance pathway. So I'll just wrap up the rest of this first option, and then we can look at kind of the variations.
Got it.
Yep. So here the red text is kind of that same language we just looked at for the previous amendment. So as this is affecting the same section, so it's all the same exception or allowances here, and then it's adding an additional one, item 8 here, which allows for factory built low probability equipment to be located in machinery rooms or outdoors, and then with a specific charge capacity. And then in chapter 15, so the proposed changes here is firstly to retain the proposal intent of including the IEC reference. So that was something that was missing from the CR 102, and then adding in that EN standard as a reference for what we reviewed in the updates to that previous section. All right. So as we switch over to the next option, option 2. So again, it maintains the primary intent of the proposal, but and it also adds in the EN compliance. But what it does to kind of address what you were mentioning, Jay, is it adds in a clause that limits the use of the NIA compliance pathway to just research and demonstration purposes. So not for uses for occupied spaces or otherwise permitting widespread use of that equipment. So and that's really the only change there. So there's the change to exception 1. All right, and then option 3 further kind of clarifies those 2 exceptions, and so keeps the same one we looked at for the NIA, option, but also adds in a where approved to limit it and be very specific that it's a jurisdictional approval requirement to use either of these exceptions to allow these types of equipment to be installed with the A3 refrigerant. And then the fourth option is really to take all the changes that were introduced in 24 GP1 113 and include them in an optional appendix. So basically taking the same intent, the language is written a little bit differently just to reference back to the base chapter 11 sections and include just some statements on intent and scope for these, but the intent is the same, but make it just as an optional appendix that jurisdictions can adopt where they deem it's reasonable. And then they could further increase the stringency as they deem fit as well from there. So I guess, yeah, so that's a quick overview of kind of what I'd come up with is some different pathways the council could take to address the public comment that we received for these sections. Happy to kind of go through it or just let everyone digest kind of some of the content and think about what might make sense as a appropriate pathway. Jay?
Yeah, could you talk a little more about research and demonstration purposes and what that, I don't know if those are defined terms, what those means and what you're trying to enable with that particular language?
Yeah, and I guess that would be to provide a means for organizations or facilities to legally acquire and install this type of equipment and use it, but not for uses where it would be installed at any kind of normally occupied location or other facilities. So there could be a better way of stating this, I guess, if we wanted to kind of, if this was kind of the ideal option the council landed on. But the intent was to really focus it on, I think there's a couple public comment items that noted the need and desire to use this equipment for these purposes so they could demonstrate the applicability and efficacy of it, but wanting a means to have a standard to refer back to. So yeah, definitely welcome any input and feedback on kind of what would be a good way of framing that.
Just a quick question. So where's the limit that would prevent somebody from using this, basically a research, piece of equipment or demonstration piece of equipment, for like an entire building, I guess?
Right. And yeah, I guess, yeah, that would definitely be something we could work to define better if there's like a certain size. I mean, it is using kind of the backing of the qualified project list, but yeah, for actual use cases, like where would it be acceptable? So that, yeah, I think that's something we could review, and I can chat with some of the folks that provided testimony on this to see if they had like a better, more defined way of encapsulating that.
Ben or Dustin, do you recall who made that request? Dustin, you had your hand up.
Well, I had a different comment on something, but I do not recall who made that request. No. But my comment was on option four. Nothing against it, but the code revisor won't allow me to create a new appendix at this point in our rulemaking. We have to break that out into a new WAC section, and if the WAC number is not included in CR 102, I can't add it in our CR 103.
Got it. Okay, that's good to know.
Okay, Ben, thank you. What would you like to see? Would you like us to absorb this now that it's out and then come back next week and talk about it?
Yeah, I think so. And I think to kind of address what Jay and Scott brought up, I can kind of review that and provide some potential adjustments for that. And then, yeah, like Dustin mentioned, if we are not able to add an appendix at this time, then yeah, I guess we would need to eliminate option four. But yeah, I would say that would be a fair approach, Todd. And like, I think it's a kind of a dense topic. And so I'd really encourage everyone to review some of the public comment that was received and see kind of which of these, if any, would best kind of respond to kind of the cumulative comments that we got.
Do you have any like other guidance for us while we review this week, or for any stakeholder that any questions maybe you have that you'd like additional expertise to help?
I mean, I think like we didn't get I don't think we got any comments from kind of a fire marshal or other fire code officials. So that would be helpful to get input from that side. So someone like Dan or others that might have some expertise on that side would definitely be helpful, I'd say.
Okay. Well, thank you for this. Council, any questions? Okay, so the task is to bring this back next week, right? We're scheduled for Tuesday, I believe, still.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Thank you greatly, Ben.
Thank you.
Okay, and then Roger, let's shift to multiplex.
Yes. So to remind everybody, this is the multiplex buildings, which allows, now I even need to make sure I'm talking about the right one. It allows a sixplex in the residential to be built out of the residential code. And what we had understood or come to realize through a public comment was that we had not addressed sound transmission. So right now, if you were going to do a sixplex, you would have to build it out of the IBC. We were directed by the legislature to basically come up with some requirements that would allow the multiplex sixplex specifically to be built out of the residential code. We pulled over fire and those types of things, but we did not address sound transmission. There was, I believe, general consensus that at the last meeting or the meeting before, I forget, that yes, it would make sense for us to add sound transmission requirements into that. There were, I received some comments. While in general, it is still a reduction in overall cost comparing the IBC to what we currently have in the appendix. Adding sound transmission back into it will add some cost into this sixplex, although it makes sense in my mind, and I think that was the general consensus. However, I put together and took a look at a couple of edits that we could make that would potentially have a small reduction the cost of the sound transmission. And that is, if you think about a floor ceiling assembly where you have a dwelling unit above and a common use area below, could we not require that there is sound transmission there? Common use areas are pretty limited in this code, and I don't have it in front of me. Dustin, I don't know how quickly you can get. I will just leave it. There are not a lot. The common use areas are limited. Bike storage, I think, that kind of stuff. So it is not a common use area where it is a living room, with TVs and that kind of stuff. It is kind of incidental spaces. And then the other one, so if you can page down just a little bit, Dustin, to the green, we could also eliminate the requirement for sound attenuation of walls between units and common areas. So if you think about, these are typically sixplexes, 3 stories, so basically 2 units on each side of a corridor. Those corridors can be either interior or exterior. The appendix allows it to be open to the air, or it also allows it to be enclosed. If you think about the walls between the units and the corridor or hallway, if it is an outside building, if it's an exterior stairway, you're going to need to have insulation just to meet the energy code. So you'll have insulation there anyway. What this requirement would allow people to build those walls if you're an interior corridor, allow those people to build those walls without insulation between the units and the stairway, the common use areas. I had some people bring those thoughts up to try to reduce cost of sound transmission. I've had some other folks that I have spoken to suggest that the changes that you're making are pretty small changes. And the reality is, do you not want insulation between your outside, the corridor and the units anyway for sound attenuation? You could make the same argument for number one. I don't know that the floor ceiling assemblies over common use areas will happen very often. Again, just knowing how these are going to get constructed, you're going to do 3 units on each side. You're going to stack them to make sure that you plumbing, etc. stacks. So at first I put this together. I sent it into to Dustin for comments from the council. After that, I really started. I talked to somebody else and really started drilling down on what would this make significant change in the cost of the sound attenuation? And the answer is not really. It isn't a big thing, but it was important enough that I wanted to get it before the full council. If there is a concern about this cost, we could make those small changes. So, and the just to be clear, the sound transmission that we had up above is what we had agreed to, was submitted by John Sue in a public comment to add that to our appendix. Questions?
Thank you, Roger. I guess, does anyone feel strongly that this change would be needed?
Well, I think anytime you can eliminate sound attenuation, not that I'd ever want to do that, but it's going to save money, right? Like, you're not doing something to mitigate sound between floors or between units. You're not spending money on certain, on insulation or hat channel or whatever other means you're using, isolators. So to me, it's definitely a cost savings item. I don't know that it's going to happen very often.
Okay. Anyone else? Roger, do you have a
Uh,
recommendation after going through this exercise?
I'm on the fence too. It's not gonna, it won't happen often. And I actually put down there, I said at the end of both of my comments, let the market determine this. If you're a builder and you're putting insulation in other walls, are you really going to avoid the insulation between the corridor and the unit? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. So I actually don't know that it is a big. While yes, it's going to save a little bit in a few situations, I don't know that it really is overall is a big deal. So, but I did want to get it out in front of everybody.
I guess my question, I'm not an IRC expert, is what is the current precedent? I know this is a new territory, but when we look at between townhouses, for example, what's the current precedent?
I believe that it is the same as we're requiring here. There isn't typically common use area. There are not common use areas in a townhouse.
Right.
So that's why this is different. Between units, like walls between units, do require in the IRC the same sound attenuation. And I think John also indicated that the sound attenuation that he has specified, the BG 102 and BG 103, the sections are not downgraded, but a little bit less than what the IBC would typically require. So,
yeah, that was presented last time.
Yeah, Tom.
Yeah, I was wondering if a common use area could be like a rec room or something like that with weight machines and exercise equipment and stuff like that.
The answer is no. There is a definition of allowable common use areas, and it is pretty tight. Dustin, if that's a question, I don't know if you or I can pull it up quicker.
So would it be contained in the appendix? Because I do have that kind of primed on the side
Yes.
here.
If you have the appendix, it should be the definition of common use area. And I'm not sure if is it there? I can't read it. Yeah.
Oh, here, let me make it bigger.
So, Tom, it sounded like you were driving. It's interior, exterior circulation paths, rooms, spaces, or elements that are not for public use and are made available for the shared use of two or more people. I thought that there was so that's what it says. I thought that there was a limit on a more specific, but I could be wrong. I could be mixing up the single exit with the multiplex. That's very possible.
Okay. Well, anything else, Council? I'm not hearing a lot of juice for the squeeze on this one. Scott, do you feel strongly?
I was just curious, what drove, I guess the marking or striking of the attenuation requirements in that one, in the second section? Was there a comment about that, or they were just asking for us to reference IRC versus IBC, right?
Scott, I'm having a hard time understanding. You're saying what was the drive for me to look at that?
Yeah, what drove in section down below sound trans?
That was, the comments down below are mine or the suggestions. Another member of the public reached out to me when we were talking last time about, yes, we needed to add sound transmission in. It was a comment that, what if you got rid of the requirement between walls and ceilings where your unit to dwelling unit to common space, it might save a little bit. That was the driver, and trying to be sensitive, trying everywhere we can. I mean, I recognize reducing costs of construction for residential units is important. That's the purpose of this in particular. But I don't feel strongly that it's required. I certainly, if there was strong support for it, I'm fine with it. The argument that I believe it was John Sue asked, I asked him to comment on it as, are you somehow creating a lesser building for lower income people? Meaning this is often going to be lower income folks. You know, we're already reducing the requirements a little bit from the IBC sound attenuation. So
okay,
that's about what I can tell you.
For a sixplex, yeah, you're right. It's not really that big of an impact. It was more units. I just know that every little dollar counts, right? Like if you add a layer of drywall, you add a hat channel, you know, on the studs, and you have to put the, you know, drywall on that. You know, if you add spring-loaded ceiling, it's just everything is a premium. So yes, I guess it does help a little bit.
okay. Well, not hearing a strong, convincing argument for it, but we can always, you know, re-raise it next week if anyone feels strongly. Is there any objection to leaving it as is for now?
No.
Okay. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Roger. Okay. Noted. Let's close this out. And I think we've done it for today. Anything else that we've missed today?
Nope.
Okay, just as a reminder to everyone, the energy hearings are tomorrow and Friday. Tomorrow's in Olympia, Friday's in Spokane. We're maintaining that schedule. Dustin did a good job of checking and making sure we can still maintain the Spokane meeting on Friday. So it'll be both in person and online. We are scheduled for next Tuesday for this work session still, correct?
Correct.
And we know we'll have at least embodied carbon review to do. So, and I'm sorry, in the mechanical code, obviously. Okay. If there's nothing else, then thank you, everyone. Oh, go ahead, Roger.
I just want to say, anybody on this call who is from the Spokane area, I hope you are safe and your families are safe.
Thanks, Roger.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay. With that, thank you. We are adjourned.